Real Estate. That would be their song. Laura Dwyer Schlecke, Bill Schlecke, Jackie Austin in the house.
There you go.
Morning, morning. Nice day.
It is.
Nice day, and as I walked in, I saw the poster for the Blues Festival at the airport.
Oh, you know, that's supposed to be.
And yeah, Tommy Castro, I listened to a lot of his stuff. Tommy Castro's dynamite. So it
Well,
should
I
be
hear
very
it's
good.
supposed to be one of the best blues festivals in the state.
Maybe,
actually.
but Tommy Castro and the Painkillers are very good. So anyway.
So are you going to go to it?
There's a
yeah, I
lot.
think so if I'm here.
Is that at the airport, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mauer International.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cindy does an amazing job with
Yeah,
that.
that's, the price is right.
Well, it's
Couple
probably
bucks to
free
get
for
in.
me since I own a hangar out there.
No, I don't
can
think
just-
so.
I have
No.
to pay? I have
Yeah.
to pay the $5?
What makes you
I'll-
privileged?
I'll-
Just because you own a
I'll-
hangar?
Or you can climb over the fence.
No, I have to climb over. I got a remote to open the door, to
Okay.
open the gate, right?
Yeah, but I'm sure it's blocked off from the other
Oh,
parts.
fine.
And besides, it's a nonprofit
I
that does
I'm
it.
kidding.
I
Come
want
on,
you
I'm
to pay,
kidding.
Bill.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No,
All right.
well, I'll get you.
No, I can.
If
I
he's
can,
that hard up, go ahead.
All right, I apologize for starting this conversation because
No,
obviously I've
that's
become a target of
It's a
both.
good promo for the event,
Okay.
because they do bring in some great music.
Yeah.
Like I say, if you ever want to listen to Tommy Castro and the Painkillers, you know, SX,
And they have
Sirius Channel 70. So,
They have beer.
well, okay.
Maybe
It's
I
a
was
blues
asked if I,
festival. Aren't they smoking stuff at that
I
event?
no,
Come on.
Bill,
Come on.
no.
Come on.
Bill, no.
as long as it's an ounce in
Nobody-
or less, right?
Well, no, that's
Oh, no,
not
that's in the
that's
city.
that's
That's
in the
in the
township.
city.
You're okay.
Oh,
Out in the
yeah.
township, you know. Okay, so.
Cindy's gonna have to move it to the city.
All right, so I just have a quick shout out to Stephanie.
We'll have
who
the
I-
sheriffs over there, Blackman.
Yeah. So I have a shout out to Stephanie at Starbucks who I saw this morning. I don't know her last name. And
She
then,
works at Starbucks?
No, her husband used to. And then Stella and Vivian, who are these two cute little girls.
You think
who
they
come
listen to
in
Greg's
every time.
show?
I told them to listen to 970 this morning, so maybe they're listening. Stella,
You
and
get
Vivian,
some
and their
new
mom.
listeners.
We
your
get
age
them at
demographic's
one
gonna
and
start
two
changing.
at a time, but we get them.
How old are
it.
those kids?
Oh, God, they got to be like 4 and 5.
We
or
starting
3 and
them young.
4.
We'll take them any way we can get
There
them.
you go.
There you go.
Sure.
Start that. Change that average age. You know, it's like it's the youngest average age of our city council right now.
Is it really?
Uh huh.
Huh. Who knew?
Who knew? Derek's
Well-
not only the tallest, still breaking the record for the tallest council member, but it's the average age.
That's got to be a nifty photo. The mayor and the.
Can we
Nice
move?
man.
Can we move on to real
I
estate
don't know.
topics, guys?
Well, I don't know.
Well, I think everybody knows their height.
Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, I know how tall I am. I'm sure. I'm sure Jason knows how tall he is.
And Laura's height differs depending upon the shoes she's
That's
wearing.
exactly
She
right.
can be 6'3" or 5'10".
Okay.
Yeah, I
Depends on
don't
what
think
she's
I
wearing.
could be 6'3". That would be some pretty tall heels. I'd fall at this stage. Hey, all right. So I want to start out with. So I heard on your show that the first-time homebuyers aren't out there buying because the.
They don't have enough money.
Right, exactly. So there's a new program for Jackson
Oh, good.
County, and let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 counties. MISTA announces lower mortgage interest rates in 8 Michigan select cities. So you can call Brandon Adler at Fifth Third. So Brandon, this is a free ad for you. And Brandon's contact information is 783-3519, 783-3519, or you can call me and I'll give you Brandon's information, 780-3800. And the interest rate goes down as low as 3.16%.
It's for first timers.
It's for anybody.
Oh.
You just can't own a home.
And Brandon's the only one that has that?
I don't know, but Brandon's the one that got me the information,
Okay.
so he's going to get the credit.
Okay.
And Brandon does an amazing job with MISTA money. He's who I would recommend. But here it is. Interest rate is 3.1. You can get it as low as 3.125. And if you do, I think that's with a 20% down though. I could be wrong on that, but if you do down payment assistance, it would be 3.625, which is really inexpensive. And that's only in 8 cities, and Jackson's one of them. So great opportunity. And the income level, I mean, I think for he sent it to me and I didn't print it. For 1 to 3 person family, you can make as much as $72,000, I think.
Oh, well,
So it's not low income, it's just getting people into homes. All right, that's all I've got on that.
okay.
Bill, what do you want to talk about?
Well, I mentioned to you this morning as we were getting dressed that
Show prep.
Yes.
yeah, that's what show prep. I'm taking a shower and getting dressed.
Show
That
prep.
was show prep this morning. I got back at 11:30 last night from a DEQ public hearing over on the west side of the state. And one of the issues, and I had touched on this before, was a survey. Now, this happens to be survey of bottomlands of a lake, particularly Lake Macatawa. But it raised for me, and I mentioned to Laura, the whole issue of surveys. And as I was going through my emails this morning, one of the daily alerts I get is from the state bar, and there's a decision from the Court of Appeals 2 days ago regarding survey. And it's interesting because, for example, last evening, I had a survey done. The applicant for this particular DEQ permit had a survey done of the bottomlands, and that survey showed a line which didn't look right to me, and I explained that to my client. So we hired another surveyor who's expert in riparian surveys, who did a survey, and lo and behold, our survey comes out decidedly different from the one that was presented by the applicant. And so that was what we presented to the DEQ at the public hearing last evening. What people don't realize is that there can be two surveyors who go out to the same property, survey it, and they come up with two different boundaries. And that's the thrust of the case that was decided by the Court of Appeals 2 days ago. The trial judge had to determine whose survey was a, quote, better, end quote, survey, and it held in
How would a
favor of
judge
one
do
of the
that?
listens to testimony. And in this particular case, the Court of Appeals, it was a close decision, and the opinion reflects that. But what the Court of Appeals said, look, we're not going to infringe the domain of the trial judge who heard the witnesses and who determined that one surveyor was more credible than the other. And so that's one way that a survey can differ, that a surveyor is less expert, let's say, than another. But they also, I did a case out on Round Lake, Round Lake out in Hillsdale County. And there, the issue was, where do we pick our monuments for starting points? And one surveyor had started at the north end of a subdivision. The other surveyor had started at a monument at the south end. And so they come up to a property somewhere in the middle, and they end up with two different boundary lines. And so the point is, you have different surveys. So you can't say unequivocally that this survey is in fact accurate if you have a boundary dispute. But that really wasn't where I was headed. That just sort of started the conversation in terms of survey. I was more interested from Laura's perspective in terms of a purchase agreement, what a realtor should recommend with respect to having a survey done or not having a survey done. What are the issues that a purchaser ought to think about in terms of buying property? Because when I buy a lot in a subdivision, it's fairly defined. But if I buy a lot which is meets and bounds description, I have no idea where that boundary is unless somebody goes out, for example, and stakes it. So, but I just thought I'd throw it to you in terms of what.
So would you like me to tell you what I tell purchasers when we
Yeah.
get to that point in the purchase agreement?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because in our purchase agreement, it has the options. It has a mortgage certificate, which is simply done for a bank in order to make sure that the structures are within the boundaries of the property. And I tell buyers that. And sometimes often banks aren't requiring those anymore. Not like they used to.
In a subdivision, you're probably right. In the meets and bounds, they'll always require it. It used to be called a mortgage survey. If you looked at one of these things 20 or 25 years ago, it actually said at the top mortgage survey. It went on to say it's not a boundary survey, don't set fences, etc. But because so many people were confused by the word survey, they now call it mortgage report or mortgage certificate. It's no longer called a
Yeah, I just
survey.
haven't seen one
So we
on
are
a closing
surveying
statement.
a particular property?
Yeah. When I buy a property, when
Because
I
you
did it-
started out talking about a lake.
Yeah, I was
But
talking.
this-
Well, I was talking about riparian boundary, but
Okay.
it doesn't have to be. The one I was talking about on Round Lake didn't have anything to do with the bottomlands. It had to do with the boundary between the two lots on Round Lake.
Sure.
And I've done a couple hundred boundary disputes involving dry land and probably 3 or 4 dozen riparian survey issues or bottomland issues. But yeah, we're talking about the normal circumstance where.
Did you win all those?
Of course you did.
Well,
I mean, that's, I don't know of a case, I don't know of a single case he's lost.
Well, let me say that a smart lawyer tries only those cases that he knows or believes fairly certainly he
Okay.
can win.
All right.
He settles the others.
Just checking.
So, yeah, most of the cases end up getting settled. When you try a boundary, for example, the one in the Court of Appeals, they tried the boundary case, it was $12,000 in damages. To try that case and get it to the Court of Appeals probably cost the parties more than the property
Sure.
was worth. I did a case up on Crystal Lake.
So most of them
up north.
settle? Is
Oh,
that
yeah,
fair to
yeah,
say?
yeah. Virtually 90% of those cases
Okay.
end up settling because you can't afford to end up trying them. I mean, I did a case.
In most cases, you're talking probably a couple feet.
Yeah, in many cases.
Right.
And particularly, we love
Try to put a
cases.
value on that.
Yeah, we love, well, you can.
Well, it's difficult though, and depends on where it is.
The ones that result in actual trials and lengthy proceedings are the ones that are on lakes because people seem to value their lake frontage so much that every foot is like a piece of gold. And as I started to say, the one on Crystal Lake, it was 13 feet on the lake, and the lawyers end up calling it the Golden Triangle because the parties litigated all the way to the Michigan Supreme Court, and the cost was many multiples of what the value of that property was, even though at that time, this is in the 1980s, when property in Crystal Lake was going for probably $3,000 a foot. But you're still only talking $40,000.
This is
for a
Crystal
13
Lake in
foot.
northern Michigan.
Yeah, Crystal
'cause we
Lake
have
in
a
northern
Crystal
Michigan.
Lake
where-
right
where-
down the street.
Where Frankfort, Michigan. But, and then often the boundary disputes become very personal between the neighbors, and so what we try to do as lawyers, or what we should be trying to do as lawyers, is try to get the people to start acting neighborly. Sometimes that works, you get them together, get a mediator, try to resurrect or rehabilitate rather the relationship, and that can resolve it. But sometimes it just ends up being so bitter a dispute that they end up having to try it, and winner take all in many circumstances, which isn't the best outcome. But anyway, to jump back, those are boundary disputes.
Right,
Laura's
so
really
what I
talking
recommend to
about
my
avoiding-
clients is, if they want a survey at the time, and this one are writing an offer, they need to determine first what they need the survey for. Do they want to know where their boundaries are for certain if it's not in a subdivision? Even if it's in a subdivision, are they going to put up a fence? Because if they're going to put up a fence, they need to know where that property line is, unless they can come to an agreement with the neighbor.
And even coming to an agreement with the neighbor, that solves it between the neighbors, but then if that fence is there for 15 years or more, that becomes the boundary line irrespective of where the true line is. And I always tell people, if you're going to put in a fence, you and your neighbor ought to actually have a boundary survey done to determine where that line is, enter into a joint fence agreement so that everybody knows from that point forward when the properties are sold, whose fence it is, who's got the responsibility to maintain it, what you can and cannot do with it. If you don't, and you're going to put in your own fence on your own property, you got to make sure every piece of that fence, including the footings for the posts for the fence, are on your property, not on the line, but on your side of the
And is
property.
there a rule, whether it's in writing somewhere or unspoken, that if you put up a wood fence, that the pretty part of the wood fence has to face your neighbor, and not the side that shows all the posts and stuff?
You probably wish that were the case, or your neighbor wishes that were the case, but the answer is clearly unequivocally no, because what's the neighbor's remedy? If you put the bad side of the fence showing all the posts, etc., on your neighbor's side and the good side on yours, what's the neighbor's remedy?
I don't know.
Build their own fence. There's many properties you'll find where they're immediately adjacent fences, because I don't want to look at the back of your fence, you don't want to look at the back of mine, so we each build a fence. And I've been involved in a number of boundary disputes. The one in Crystal Lake is a good example. We won that case finally through the Michigan Supreme Court, and the next weekend, the neighbors who lost built a, quote, spite fence. It was permitted under the ordinance just to block off where that new boundary line was established. My clients didn't want to be spited, so they built their own fence.
Of course, it would be hard to
adjacent
build a fence with the nice side facing your own property, because you'd have to be on your neighbor's property to put that up. You'd have to be standing on your neighbor's property probably to,
Look, when you put up
Put it
a
up.
fence without a joint agreement with your neighbor, you have to make certain that everything you do is on your side of the boundary line. You can't go on the other side of the boundary to maintain it, to paint it, to repair it, or anything else. You must do it from your side,
Right.
unless you get the permission from your neighbor. You have no right to trespass across that line without that permission.
so
Yes.
does that include the air? So my feet
It
might
includes
be
the
on
air.
my
You're-
land, but my butt might hang over.
No, a good example might be you put a fence up and then you hang something on it on the other side, and if it hangs over the property line, it's not entitled to be there.
Huh.
Yeah,
It's,
no,
it's like the limb of a tree.
well, your boundary line isn't just a line on the surface. Your boundary line extends from the center of the earth all the way to the heavens, in
No.
theory. Yeah,
It does.
there's actually a term in the English common law, Latin term, from the center of the earth to the heavens, that I own. Now, obviously, it's the airspace is subject to the rights of the public. The
Such
rights of
as
the
you go
FAA,
over there
etc.
on Wildwood, the Bonton room that I had for sale, they've got an easement in their legal description, an air easement, because of the airport.
Yeah, right. It's called an aviation or navigation easement is what it's called. Right. In other words,
Who knew?
that you can't build a navigation easement.
Now your listeners do.
Yeah.
A navigation easement is at the end of each runway, and it extends from a low altitude there and then goes at an angle upward until the airplane is no longer
See, now-
affecting people on the ground.
I don't think that there's a runway that goes over that particular property, but it's still an air easement.
Yeah, it's close enough to the runway because that's runway
You know where the Bonton
three.
room
Yeah,
was?
yeah, 3214. That's
Who
runway
knew?
3214. That's the crosswind runway 3214.
Oh, okay.
And the
Alright.
Bonton room is just to the right of runway 32.
Right.
So
So
that's-
all those properties in there are gonna have some sort of air easement. Is it a big deal? Probably not,
No.
not unless you're gonna plan on building an 8 or 10-story building,
Which is probably prohibited by the zoning ordinance anyway.
so.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily, affect your,
But government actually acquires a navigation easement because there are also issues not with respect to just building height, but also with respect to noise. And so the government buys a navigation easement at the extensions of each runway in order to prevent building within that easement entirely, so that they don't end up with complaints from property owners who say airplanes going over my property are creating a nuisance or creating too much noise. In Ann Arbor, that's been a huge issue for 30-some years, where the group has been trying to shut down the airport versus the airport users.
Huh.
Because there's a really nice subdivision off the end of runway 24.
well, our time is
Yeah,
almost
didn't,
out.
and we really didn't get to the subjects I want to talk about on survey with exceptions,
Well, you can
without
talk for
exceptions.
any length on any subject,
No,
whether
no.
you know anything about it or
No,
not.
but I'm saying it was a
so-
good conversation, and I think, there's some good information on surveys put out there, boundary disputes, et cetera, but I'd like to extend the conversation a little bit about what a purchaser should actually be looking for in terms of survey, who's gonna pay the cost of it, all those sorts of happy issues.
Okay,
We can do that another time.
so I wanna talk
Next
about,
time?
Yeah, next time.
next time I'm probably gonna have a guest speaker.
I thought I was your guest speaker, now I'm
Oh.
feeling rejected.
Yeah, well, I thought you were going up north or something.
I'm gonna leave in a huff. Go ahead.
Don Huff, the Huff
Go,
Automotive.
go.
Anyhow, so there's a couple properties. Minor Road, 1149 Minor Road. It's for 142 3-bedroom, 1-bath farmhouse with a lot of outbuildings. It's on over 3 acres, 1,500 square feet. That's 142 in Western School District. Another one in Western School District that's getting a lot of activity is 5515 Kibbe Road. Really cute farmhouse type property, 134.9, 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bath. And that's got it's got a 3+ car garage. Pearlman, a cute 2-bedroom off of Detman Road. It's 3126 Pearlman's down to 79.9. That's a cream puff. 1830 Lockmore, huge house. That is down to 299. That's at the back of 340 Farms, 5 bedrooms, 4 baths, under 4,000 square feet, plus a full basement. Huge house. So a lot of house for the money. Another cream puff, 113 North Thompson, 89.9. That house has got a very cool brick exterior, brand new kitchen. Everything's new on the inside. 89.9. 411 West Morel is a very cool house with 4 bedrooms, 1.5. That's a short sale at 79.9. And then last but certainly not least is Pemberton, 739 Pemberton, 229.9. That's a 4 bedroom, 2 full baths, 2 half baths, and she's giving a $4,000 credit towards
Sweet.
carpet, and it's in a mint condition.
Call this number.
780-3800.